So last week we talked about soul searching, examining all of our actions to see who we came here to be. And this week I want to talk about if I believe I can. Now what I mean by that is if I believe in my own divinity, then I should believe that I can do anything. Ernest Butterworth wrote this great quote, and here's what it says. You will be amazed at the wonderful things that will begin to unfold for you as you develop a more positive image of yourself and as you recenter your faith in the all-accomplishing power of the divine within you. I want you to hear those words. The all-accomplishing power of the divine within you. If I believe that, I can do anything. So it's precisely what today's message is all about. Learning to have that faith that we so deeply know that we are individual expressions of the divine, that we embrace that and we don't allow ourselves to stop ourselves from doing anything that we dream that we can do. I read a Chinese fortune cookie last Sunday, which I thought was very appropriate for it to show up last Sunday. And it said, you may be disappointed if you fail, but you are doomed if you don't try. So that's pretty much what I want you to realize, is that today it's all about believing that you can and taking the necessary steps to try to do whatever it is that you dream you can do. So when we believe in our own divinity, the question for the week is this. What's the one choice that you might make today to embrace the power of the divine within you so as to accomplish whatever it is you might desire to dream? So who do we believe we are? Let's begin by looking at that, because all that you do, every action, every experience that you've had has come to make up who you are. And in this philosophy where we believe that what we think about we can manifest, it's important that we believe that we're divine individuals and that we have that all-accomplishing power of the divine within us. So we want to broadcast ourselves as that divine being, so that if we believe in the law of cause and effect, what happens is the effect of us broadcasting that brings to us whatever it is we desire. That we really are, and we become a channel of God's good. So I want you to think about personalizing and realizing that you are a channel of God's good. So we are a channel of God's good. And the magnificence of our real nature sometimes gets hidden so that all the aspects of it can't be seen. It's hidden between layers beneath our soul. It's almost like we have this mountain that we've built up of all these layers that are hiding our good. And so when we cover up all of our knowledge of being divine individuals, what happens is we start to fail to believe that we can. Now, when we awaken to our real nature, that divine nature, there's no other and there's nothing that we can fear. But until that happens, what happens is that we start to accept negative beliefs. And they might look like, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I need to protect myself from something or someone. The universe is an unfriendly place. We've all had some type of belief that has impacted our lives in some way and kept us from really recognizing all of our good. Right now, some of those beliefs might be around the political process or around the belief that we really don't have choices. And what I want you to know is that is not the truth. That when you hear somebody say, it doesn't matter, that's nonsense. It does matter what choices you make. And so since we're always at choice, And we do have control over what we do. What I would recommend to you is, in this political arena, is to go vote. It's not for anybody to tell you how to vote, but make your voice heard. Go out and vote. And then release the outcome knowing that everything is in divine order, and whatever happens, there is a lesson that we will be learning from it. Ernest Holmes put it this way: if one would take time, once a day at least, to let go of all that is not true and lay hold of reality, to let go of doubt, worry, condemnation, and fear, and lay hold of life in its expressions of beauty, truth, and wholeness, his mental congestion would be healed. So let go of the things that aren't the truth and allow yourself to just live in the beauty and the wholeness of life. And when we do that, I think what happens is all of those false beliefs start to at least erode a little bit. You know, when we cook, whatever we put into the pan or whatever we put into the mixing bowl happens to become the contents of that final cuisine that we place on the table. And whether it be a cake or what have you, what I know is if I put garlic and onions in a pineapple upside down cake, people probably aren't going to eat it. They might take one bite. They might not even take a bite if they smelled it. But the truth is that the ingredients that we put into something make a difference in how it comes out. And it's easy to see that analogy between ingredients in a mixing bowl for a cake and how the cake turns out, and what we believe and what we put into our belief system and the cake of our experience of life. Does that make sense? So what we're going to look at is, what ingredients are we putting into the mixing bowl of our life? Because in our lives, we often put things like doubt into the mixing bowl. Well, if you put doubt into your mixing bowl, what's going to happen with that dream that you want to have experience? It's not going to happen. What if we put lack of abundance into that mixing bowl? If we put lack of abundance into our dream, we might not even attempt to get the ingredients that we need in order to mix together to get our dream to happen. If we put unworthiness into our dream, what happens maybe is that our dream becomes flat. It's like baking a cake and you forgot to put the baking soda in it. Guess what? Flat cake. So you get the idea that our thoughts and our beliefs impact who it is we are and what it is we can accomplish. So when we want to believe it, whatever the thoughts are that we're keeping in our mind, let your thoughts be the ingredients that you want to place into that mixing bowl. If you have thoughts that actually are keeping you from meeting your dream, you can change it. Now, true, if you put an extra egg in a cake and it only called for 2 eggs and you put 3 because you're just used to putting 3 eggs in it, what's going to happen? Well, the cake might be a little bit fluffier than you wanted it to be, or what have you. Sometimes the ingredients that we put in don't impact the outcome a lot. But like I was saying, if I put garlic and onions in my cake, it's going to impact the outcome a lot. So we need to be conscious of what it is we're doing in life and what ingredients we're actually putting into that mixing bowl of life that we're living by. So when you're cooking your dream, that's the time to be very much aware of what your beliefs are, what your values are, what are you putting into the energy of that dream. And by the way, the cake's not going to get done if you don't put it in the oven. So once you get all those ingredients together, you have to put yourself out there and let it get baked. And sometimes some cakes take 25 minutes, other cakes take an hour. So sometimes the timeline is not exactly the same as somebody else's timeline. But it just requires us to be patient enough to allow that cake to be baked into whatever it is our dream that we're looking for. So we have this cake now and it's in the oven, and you know, one of the things I want to tell you is, if you don't know how to make a cake or don't know how to cook, you can always ask someone that does. And one of the things we might want to do is remember that we can ask the divine to show us the way to the first step to our dream. So once we know how to make these delicious cakes, maybe cakes that are so tasty that we just couldn't imagine having tasted anything ever better than that, it's time for us to look at how we can expand that into maybe cookies and pies and really expand our lives to be a bakery shop of wonderful goodies. And once we realize that we have this divine nature, we might want to expand who we believe we are. Because sometimes we start out our life and we wander a little bit and we go through different phases of being this person or that person, and then, hey, we finally end up where we think we're going to be, having made several stops along the way, maybe not even figuring out how they got us to where we were. For example, who would expect it that an engineering career would have gotten me to this place where in the time of COVID, I need to use all my engineering skills in order to provide services to the community. And I would have never thought about how that was connected to ministry until this particular time happened. There was a young man one time, and he was wondering about his life purpose, so he went to visit this wise old man who lived in the woods. And he said, I don't know what to do with my life. I don't know how to find my purpose. And so the wise old man said, well, come with me. And he took him down to the river. And at the river, there were dozens of people that were panning for gold. And some people were finding gold. And he said, there's actually 3 types of prospectors here. And so the young man was really curious, and he was listening. And he said, the first type is the type of prospector who finds gold right away. And he takes his gold and he lives a wonderful life. And then there's another kind of prospector that it takes him time and time, but he's persistent. And he keeps panning for gold, and eventually he finds it. And then there's the third kind. They pan for gold, and maybe for a week or a month, and then they get discouraged, and they walk away. And the young man's thinking, well, that's a great little story. But he asked the wise man, well, what does that have to do with my purpose in life? And the old man said, well, some of us at a very young age discover our purpose, and we live our whole entire life doing exactly what it was we knew we were meant to do. And there's other of us that we kind of wander a little bit. We do one thing and we realize, well, that's really not quite it. And then we do another thing and we realize, well, that's really not quite it. And then finally, we find something like me in my ministry where it's like, this is it. This is what my whole life has been leading towards. Me being able to be in a community that I love, that just fills me with joy every week, where my work is not really work, it's just a delight. It brings me closer to the divine every day as I'm writing services or sending out words of wisdom. Whatever it is, I wandered a lot to get here. And then there's those people that never find their purpose because they quit seeking. They just give up. They're in what we might sometimes call lost souls, although we know in this philosophy there is no such thing as a lost soul. So just about the time that this young man was thinking, wow, I have really wasted my time today. I've gotten 2 analogies and they really aren't telling me about my purpose. He felt this reassuring hand on his shoulder. And the wise old man said, I can sense your frustration. But let me tell you this, if you find your true calling, you live with passion. You make the world a better place. You're richer, and you can imagine and feel the very face of God smiling upon you. The face of God smiling upon you. I love that line in the story. And the thing is, It might happen tomorrow. It might happen next week. It might happen next month, next year. And until then, let me just remind you that your life purpose right now is seeking to find your life purpose. So it was getting late, and the two of them were walking back to the wise man's hut, and the young man was very quiet and very pensive. And as they walked together, both of them knew, the young man knew that he had found his purpose for the day. And the wise old man knew that he had found another opportunity to live his purpose in sharing what he knew. So that's a great story, because I think what happens is when we want to know who we are, sometimes we think, well, I know who I am today, but I'm not really sure who I always am being. And we know that our purpose is to be who we are today, but to look for ways to expand our connection with the divine, our connection with that inner self. And sometimes we wander a little bit. Sometimes we discover the current me, but then we get dissatisfied with it, discover another me. That's all about what the wise old man was saying. It's a journey. And the story for me is like the cookie fortune message. You can be disappointed if you fail, but you'll be doomed if you don't try. So every day, seeking to be who we are and to be more of who we are and find our life's purpose is the actual essence of living. Ernest Holmes told us that God is right where we are. God is who I am. And he also said this: I enter into the conscious possession of the divine allness, this universal beauty, this perfect reality today. I know it is manifesting in my life. So it's important for us to know that this divine message is manifesting in our life, that whatever it is we're doing, we are on this journey to believing in the very essence of our souls that the divine good is ours, that we are indeed individual expressions of the divine, and all that God can do, we can tap into and have our dreams come true. That the divine master is the master of the mixing bowl. We can put whatever we want to in it and have come out this delicious, tasty, final cuisine. So in Love and Law, Ernest Holmes wrote, your final emancipation will be written by your own hand, thought by your own mind, recognized as your own birthright. So what do you want your cake experience of life to be? Do you want to know that your divine birthright allows you to accomplish whatever it is you want? If you believe that you can make your dream come true, you can make it come true. So your challenge for this week is just to figure out what are the ingredients that I'm seeking so that I can find the essence of who I am and live from that place of knowing that I am a divine expression of God, and all of the God good is mine. So I have a question for you that you can check in with yourself every evening. What's the one thing that I did today to embrace the purpose of life, to embrace that power of the divine so I can accomplish whatever it is I desire? What is the one thing I did today? Ask yourself that every evening. What's the one thing I did today to embrace that power of the divine so that you can make your dreams come true, so that you can make a beautiful life for yourselves? So let's pray. In the reading, we heard Howard Thurman say, "In the quietness of this place, surrounded by the all-prevailing presence of God, my heart whispers, keep fresh the moments of my high resolve." So knowing that God is that divine master, that God is love and joy and peace and ease and grace, and all that the divine is lives right within each of us, that we are one with all of that. What I know is that we can take our high resolve right now to bake the tastiest cake of our life and keep it in our minds. Remember each day that the power of the divine is ours for the taking. I am so grateful. I am so grateful to be a part of a philosophy that is a philosophy of acceptance and of power and of commitment to who we are. And a part of a philosophy that knows that each one of us is an individual expressing as ourselves. So it's from all that gratitude that I just release these words, knowing them to be the truth and knowing that the divine has already called them good. And in that infinity of life, they've already come true. So I can just say amen. And together we can affirm it. And so it is.